Trump is threatening to keep the attacks on Iran going. The president says strikes on Iran's bridges and power plants are still on the table.
But I'd rather not do it because once you do that, the people suffer. Like I heard you mentioning water. Water is really a devastating loss for them. I don't want to have boots on the ground, but if I wanted to, we could put a small group of soldiers and take over the whole place. They're finished.
The House of Representatives preparing to hold a vote today on a short-term extension for Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA, as the program is set to expire tomorrow. Republican Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan hopes the chamber votes in favor of the extension, adding it plays a vital role in national security.
This is the program where they gather information. I think over around 70% of the president's what's called his daily brief, when the intelligence community briefs the commander-in-chief. Most of the information they give him comes from gathering the information gathered through this program on foreign targets.
The Justice Department working alongside DHS to target illegal aliens accused of smuggling children into the United States. Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin accused officials in the Biden administration of failing to secure the southern border.
We're going to enforce our nation's laws, and we're going to right the wrongs that the Biden administration turned a blind eye to. It's because of President Trump's leadership. It's horrific to what's happening right in our own country. Those that preyed on these young kids, we're going to bring you to justice. We're going to charge you. And we're going to work side by side with Todd Blanche and DOJ to make sure you pay for your crimes.
Carmelo Anthony's legal team is appealing his conviction less than 24 hours after the 19-year-old was found guilty of the murder of Austin Metcalf at a Texas track meet in 2025. Steve Jordahl tells us Anthony's defense is claiming, among other things, racial bias.
A jury found then 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony guilty of stabbing Austin Metcalf in the heart, killing him. Anthony is black and Metcalf is white, but during the trial, both sides claimed the case was not about race. After the verdict, that's all it was about, at least outside the courthouse.
What this process did is shown that black lives do not matter in Collin County.
AFR Talk host Jenna Ellis told the Today's Issues crew there's no systemic racism in the U.S., despite what protesters claim. There is, however, systemic Marxism.
The left has politicized it and made it about race, which is just yet another example of the cultural Marxism that is implicit in our nation.
As applied to this case,
Carmelo Anthony, simply because of the color of his skin, is a victim regardless of his life choices to murder another young man. And Austin Metcalf, because of his skin color being white, he is an oppressor and therefore can't be a victim.
Ellis says the defense will argue on appeal that Anthony is a victim of racism, which they will claim is infused into the American system.
And if you are in the oppressed category, you are perpetually the victim, regardless of whether or not you are in fact an aggressor of harm.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
Wholesale prices jumped again in May. Jenny Casola reports.
The Producer Price Index for May rose more than expected, up 1.1%. The PPI measures prices at the wholesale level. The increase was more than estimated. High energy prices are impacting inflation. Excluding food and energy, the PPI was up just 0.4%. For the year ending in May, the PPI rose 6.5%, the steepest increase since November of 2022. But core PPI for the year came in at 4.9%. Jenny Coselda, Fox News.
U.S. stocks are recovering some of their losses for the week as the roller coaster for AI companies turns back upward. They also got help today from easing oil prices and Treasury yields, which relaxed the pressure, even though worries are rising about the war with Iran and inflation. The S&P 500 added 0.6%, the Dow up 373 points, and the Nasdaq Composite climbed 0.8%. More news online at afn.net and on the AFN mobile app. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Hey friends, I want to invite you to our Call to Care equipping event on Saturday, June 13th in Plano, Texas. If you're a ministry leader, a pastor, counselor, or someone who feels called to help others, this is the event for you. Our theme this year is From Hurt to Hope. You can join us in person or online, so sign up today at hopefortheheart.org/events or text the word event to 70919 to learn more.
we inform.
Religious freedom is about people of faith being able to live out their faith, live out their convictions, no matter where they are.
We equip.
Sacred honor is the courage to speak truth, to live out your free speech.
We also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. Thanks for joining me today. Walker's got you Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm with you on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And right off the bat, phone number is 888-589-8840. 888-589-8840. In just the last few minutes, it looks like President Trump is calling off the additional strikes against Iran. So not sure what's happening. Maybe discussions are going better. As we said, Tuesday, the problem for the president right now is who do you talk to? So he's having to deal with all these factions and try to get each of those factions to agree to, whatever the deal is. And then, of course, we know this is a regime that's not going to stick to the deal in the long run. But as we mentioned on Tuesday, it is very possible and perhaps even the best game plan to get a deal done now that at least deals with the two big issues, keeping the straits open and making sure that they don't have the ability to get a nuclear weapon. If he can win on those two issues, he can claim victory, move forward into the midterms, make sure that Israel's allowed to do whatever they got to do to protect themselves. That should be a given. Unfortunately, you have a lot of people infected with the anti-Israel virus in their brain, and they're not thinking straight, and so they actually cheer against a nation that is the most like America of any nation in the Middle East and should be the nation that we cheer for. But unfortunately, that same spirit that causes people just to not be able to think rationally has infected a lot of people from, quote-unquote, our side, people that used to be rational, used to be for a nation being able to defend themselves and exist, and unfortunately now are cheering for Iran, of all people. So anyway, not sure, just saw that headline as we were going live, not sure what all the details are on that, but very, very interesting to watch. I know we, had an awful lot of strikes last night and then limited ones the night before. I think, one of the reporters I watched said that President Trump was planning to significantly increase that even tonight. So maybe it's working. Maybe it's moving them to finally do a deal. My position on this has been the same all along. I would love to see Iran become once again a Persian nation that is a blessing to Israel and to the rest of the world. If you think back throughout history and even going all the way back to Esther and biblical stories, I don't, that's not beyond God. That's not beyond what God could do. Absolutely could be done. You look at even what Iran was like in before this Islamic regime took over 47 years ago. You had a nation that was, a monarch, but at least lived in relative freedom and had, economic prosperity and all of those things that you would like to see. And there's no reason they can't go back. Other than, back to what I said at the very beginning of this, unless the soil at this point, that there's not enough good soil left, that after 47 years, you basically educated out and murdered out and stamped out the vestiges of a free people that desire those things. You can unfortunately, you can essentially train a people into tyranny. That's what happens in communism. It's what happens in any tyrannical system. People get used to it. That's why that line in the Declaration I love so much from Jefferson as a reminder to our people to not get lazy and lackadaisical or just trained into tyranny. We have soft tyranny in America, as Mark Levin wrote about in his book Ameritopia. But the line in the Declaration it simply says that mankind is more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they have become accustomed. And that, if you put that in extreme tyrannical terms, like Iran, you've got a people that have become accustomed to the tyranny. Not that they wouldn't, somewhere deep down still want to live in freedom, but when they weigh the cost and the risk of, protesting and being killed, and watching people around them, and many of them had to see their friends and family murdered during the initial protest, and 50,000 or more of them murdered by their own government. So you can imagine, if you don't have weapons, if you don't have the ability to fight back, and you've got some desire to live in freedom, and you try to stand up, and then you experience that, well, it's kind of hard to stand up the next time. It's kind of hard to take advantage of the opportunity to protest when there's a lull in the tyranny because of America's strikes and Israel's strikes. It's still hard for them, if not impossible. And so they've been essentially conditioned into a mindset of tyranny and just saying, well, I'd rather be alive, and at least we know the devil you know, right, instead of the devil you don't. And so that's unfortunately where I think the Iranian people are. And so the groups that do still have a fire of liberty in them, I guess, are too small or unarmed to launch a effective enough campaign to throw out this Islamic evil Islamic regime that has done such horrible things and for so many years, not only to the Iranian people but to the world. So I that's, again, going back, that's what we would love to see. That's still what I think is possible if the God factor, if he wills it, and if he causes certain things to come about that I can't even think of right now or imagine would be possible, then absolutely they could become a totally different nation. But we're not there. We're not there. And I think the thing that has surprised a lot of people, including me, is the ability of Iran to withstand the attacks and the carnage and not cave. I think they've been able to hold out longer than people like me thought. Now, maybe Pete Hegseth and President Trump and those in the Situation Room with the intelligence and the information that I don't have, maybe they knew that it would be likely and possible that this would happen, and so they had contingency plans for it. But what I see at this point is victory on the most important fronts, and if he gets that, then I think it would be smart for him to de-escalate meeting President Trump. At least until after the midterms. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Love to hear your thoughts on it. 888-589-8840. That's 888-589-8840. And other news out there. I'm just going to give you a little update on what's going on right here in my backyard in Texas, Constitution City, Texas, with some of the activities that we have going. We've got a massive, massive event at the campus starting tonight. I always wonder how much crossover I have in the different audiences I get a chance to be a part of. So I don't know how many American Family Radio listeners also watch Flashpoint. But Flashpoint is a show that I do usually twice a week. It's not always twice a week, sometimes once a week. Some weeks I miss completely. It's a show hosted by a guy named Gene Bailey. And it's now 5 nights a week. It started as 1 night a week during the COVID insanity of 2020 and the elections and the stolen election and all the things that happened. Then it went to 2 nights and 3 nights, and then in the last couple of months has gone to all 5 nights. Massive show. I am blown away at the number of people I run into all over the country that say, I saw you on Flashpoint, or I watch you on Flashpoint. So they definitely have a big audience. They've never been to the campus before to broadcast. Now, they did come down. Flashpoint came down. Gene Bailey and some of the team came down for our kickoff, our groundbreaking that we did 3 years ago. On April 19th, the shot heard around the world in 1775. Well, we did April 19th as our groundbreaking for the Patriot Academy campus. Well, now we're finally going to broadcast Flashpoint from the Patriot Academy campus. So I'm telling you, I've got chaos all around me right now, even as I'm broadcasting from the Patriot Academy campus to you here on American Family Radio. The House Chamber, if you're a new listener or you haven't heard me talk about this before, at Patriot Academy we built our own Texas House replica. So we have a legislative hall, basically, where we conduct these mock legislative sessions for students, for pastors, for military veterans, for all kinds of groups. And so that chamber, that House chamber, has been essentially converted slightly to be able to broadcast Flashpoint live from the chamber tonight and tomorrow night. And then in other news at the Patriot Academy campus, we built out a small portion of our Independence Hall replica. So that's one of our big goals here at Patriot Academy, is to build Independence Hall. I was hoping to have it done by the July 4th of the beginning of the 250th, 2026, which is just a few weeks away. don't think, but possibly, if the Lord wills it and we raise enough money fast enough, but would love to have it built by the end of the 250th, July 4th, 2027. But we're probably like 2 years away from having it built. However, we built the interior of Independence Hall already because we had this incredible guy, Mark Adams, who offered his woodworking school in Indiana to us and gave up a whole week, shut down the school, and spent the whole week building out the all of the paneling, all of the Windsor chairs, the tables, the tablecloths, the curtains, the chandeliers. I mean, it was insane what they did in a week. Absolutely amazing. And so I've had that entire build out just sitting in storage waiting for us to get Independence Hall built. Well, figured July 4th, 2026, the 250th birthday of the nation, why not get some of that stuff out and build a small portion of the interior of Independence Hall? What most people think of as Independence Hall is the assembly room. It's where the Constitution and the Declaration were done. You can picture it in your mind right now as I'm talking. It's the green tablecloths. It's the president's chair up there that Ben Franklin said. I've been wondering if it's a rising or a setting sun. You would recognize the iconic room. So we set up that part of it. We put those walls literally in our legislative hall, the president's chair, and just like 2 or 3 of the other tables and Windsor chairs. And we're going to let people come in, and it's like you're walking. It's hard to describe, but it's in a corner of our legislative hall, which is huge. And this corner is that middle part of the assembly room. And so tonight, when we go live on Flashpoint, we're going to be able to show people that and say, hey, that's what's coming. We're going to build out the entire Independence Hall. But for now, you can see a little piece of history for the 250th and walk right into that little piece of history and sign the Declaration of Independence, which we'll do on July 4th here at the Patriot Academy campus. Speaking of which, if you're interested in joining us, you're welcome to come. Constitution City, Texas, man, come on. July 4th, we're going to have a big party. Be from 5 to 9 on July 4th. So you could fly in, drive in. We're 50 minutes from San Antonio, 50 minutes gate to gate from the airport to our gate, and plenty of hotels. And I don't think we have any cottages left to rent on site here at the campus, but there are plenty of hotels and Airbnbs close by. So if you have not made plans for your July 4th celebration of the 250th birthday of the nation, you need to be in Constitution City, Texas. We got Ben Franklin joining us. George Washington will be there giving a speech. I don't know how good he's going to look. I mean, he's got to be, 280 years old or so, 290? I don't know. Anyway, we'll have George Washington, Ben Franklin, a few others, and I'll, of course, be reciting and talking about the Declaration and each of those principles, and then some of our Patriot Institute students as well. Brad Stein will be with us, the comedian that I think is the best in the country. He and I do this thing called Comedy and Constitution, but he'll be there to speak and share a little bit. And a few other surprises probably. So if you're interested in doing that, go to patriotacademy.com/250th, patriotacademy.com/250 or 250th, and it will take you to the registration page to join us. Great chance to get together. Now here's what I want to close out the segment with. If you're not going to be here in Constitution City on July 4th to celebrate the 250th, then do one of your own. Have a 250th celebration in your community. That could be at your house. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be at the courthouse or some big government building. You could just have a big party at your house. Hot dogs, have some good food and some good fireworks. But whatever you do, whether you're getting together at your county courthouse or I like the idea of churches doing it because it helps bring the community together and the church be the epicenter of the community as it should. But wherever you're going to get together with people on July 4th, just a few weeks away, I encourage you, get a copy of the Declaration of Independence, blow it up. We're going to have big foam board blown up copies at all of our celebrations, or just at least print out a copy and have people read the Declaration and sign it. Have a party where people actually hear the words that we're celebrating, where they don't just have hot dogs and fireworks that are going to fizzle and be gone. They actually study the Declaration of Independence, at least to the extent of reading it and hearing what's actually in there, and then they sign it. They pledge their life, their fortune, their sacred honor to saving this country, to rebuilding liberty. You can be the one to host that in your community. If you go to our website, we give you some ideas on how to do that and some steps. PatriotAcademy.com, same website, /250. All right, got to take a quick break. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. You're listening to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green.
longing to see you even as I recall your tears, so that I may be filled with joy. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. Paul's second epistle to Timothy was written near the very end of Paul's life, while he was incarcerated, awaiting an imminent, albeit uncertain, execution under Nero. He begins chapter 1 of this epistle describing how he prayed for Timothy night and day, and how he longed to see him. This reveals a fiber and texture that undergirded their relationship. Paul and Timothy loved each other deeply. This deep and abiding reciprocal love is necessary to effective disciple making. Knowledge isn't enough to make a disciple. The love of Christ must abound.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, Public Policy Analyst for the American Family Association.
Maybe this is you too. There's enormous frustration right now with healthcare costs. It is amazing. Healthcare costs for families in the last 20 years have almost tripled, and it just keeps getting worse. All this to say, this is why MediShare is so in demand right now. People are looking for alternatives, and MediShare is proven. You can save thousands of dollars a year and actually like it more. Over 1 million Americans are now part of healthcare sharing, and MediShare is the gold standard. It's trusted, it works, it's been helping people save money and have peace of mind now for 30 plus years. It's not some big impersonal thing either. It's a community of people like you helping each other. So yeah, if you're frustrated too, here's your chance to make a refreshing change. You'll notice the difference as soon as you call. They're easy to talk to. You can get a price within 2 minutes. Here is the number. Call 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
Hello, everyone. Tim Wildmon, president of American Family Association and American Family Radio. We are going to Italy in March of 2027. We're also going to Greece in March of 2027, and we're doing those tours back to back if you want to do both of them. In Italy, we'll be going to Venice, we'll ride the gondola and see all the sights there, and we'll go to Pisa and walk on the Leaning Tower of. If you fall off, we're not responsible. Also, we're going to Rome and see the Sistine Chapel and the Colosseum and all the catacombs. We'll see all the sights of Rome. And in Greece, it's the Footsteps of Paul trip, so the places where Paul went in the Bible mentioned in Greece. If you want information on any of these tours, go to tours.afa.net, tours.afa.net, tours.afa.net.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Rick Green.
Welcome back at the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution coach. Getting back to these headlines. Man, all right, first of all, this one's going to be tough to talk about, but I cannot ignore it. So Mark Wayne Mullen is the new Homeland Security chief, says that they have located 146,000 missing unaccompanied migrant children so far. And he said that some of these missing kids suffered horrific abuse. Tens of thousands of unaccompanied migrant children located. He said, we have found 146,000 so far. Mullen added that after investigations into the cases, you start hearing the absolute horrific things that took place underneath the prior presidential administration. He said it was either true neglect at best or criminal at worst to allow 450,000 kids to go missing throughout our country. Some of these kids claim they were raped 600 to 700 times. I don't care who you are. If you can't stand for law enforcement to go find these kids, who are you? That's our Homeland Security chief. Secretary, sorry. I cannot imagine how messed up you have to be, how much Trump derangement syndrome you have to have to if you know this, and you still impede ICE and Homeland Security and all these others that are trying to find these kids, trying to get rid of the rapists and the murderers and the gang members and drug dealers. I don't know. I can't even comprehend your thinking. Like, how messed up do you have to be to protest ICE, knowing that they're going to rescue these kids? It's a huge part of their mission to find these kids and to separate them from these traffickers that Joe Biden let just waltz across our border. Do you realize what the Democrats did for 4 years in this country? By opening our border completely to the worst of the worst criminal element. Now, there's no question good people came as well. Good people that just wanted the American dream, wanted the opportunity. And if I don't have to stand in line, why not walk across and get all of the benefits of being an American without having to do anything? So, of course, good people came, meaning good people that wanted good things. I guess if you're breaking the law, there's some extent of, okay, you're breaking the law to come here and do that. So are you good? We all do bad things. All right, won't go down that rabbit hole. But the fact that the border was so easy to come across, the fact that the president of the United States, or at least the people that were controlling him, was willing to say to Greg Abbott as a governor and other governors, border state governors, you're not even allowed to stop this flow. We're going to sue you. We're going to sue our own people to stop you from stopping the thugs and the rapists and the murderers from coming across the border into your state. That's what they did for 4 years. And the numbers are mind-boggling. How many millions came in? And how many of those millions are, in fact, the worst of the worst from around the world, and they're still here. And so here we now have a president who's trying to deport them, get rid of these criminals, and even the good people that came over, just basically make them follow the law, make them go home and reapply and come legally. And then most importantly, find these kids. Find these kids that have suffered horrific abuse, that have been trafficked, easily trafficked, as a result of the Joe Biden administration, as a result of the Democrats, what Ali Bestucky would call toxic empathy. Because you got quote-unquote religious leaders out there. Oh, they just think they're being nice. They think they're being a good neighbor. They think they're treating the sojourner well. No, you're not. You're allowing the sojourner to be sex trafficked. You're allowing the sojourner to face the most horrific abuse that could possibly happen to a sojourner in our land, in our neighborhoods. It's evil. It's evil. And I think I should be righteously angry. I hope I'm being angry and not sinning, but I am angry. I am so angry at the horrific abuse that took place and continues to take place to this day because of these white women liberals out there stopping ICE and the Homeland Security from rescuing these kids, stopping them from removing the pedophiles. It just makes no sense whatsoever. And I say shame on you if you are so Trump derangement syndromed that you are anti-law enforcement now and you would rather have rapists and murderers and thugs in your neighborhood than good people. Shame on you. Okay, I better move on from that one or I'm going to maybe get too upset. Okay, Carmelo Anthony. So here's this kid. He's an adult. He's 19 now. He was 17 when he murdered one of his classmates. Found guilty, and it looks like 35 years without. Okay, let's see. So he does have a chance for parole. So once he served half of his sentence, he could get parole. So he's got to do a minimum of 17 and a half years. I would think he probably has to do the 35 years. The parole board would make that decision after 17 and a half years. Apparently the judge tried to get the jury to consider sudden passion, but they chose to give him the full 35 years. Okay, now that's not. They could have given 99, I guess, but they gave 35, factoring in his age and all of those things. All right, let me just say this. Another sickening thing. Another thing that makes you wonder, how did people in America get this sick in their thinking? Some of the responses to the murderer actually being found guilty and justice being served make you scratch your head and go, what kind of a country have these people been raised in that they would be so racist that they actually think that the injustice is the fact that this murderer is being sentenced to 35 years. All because he's black and the victim's white. I mean, you watch their threads, you look at what they're saying, and this is not, let me be very clear, this is not, all blacks in America or all whites in America. This is a certain segment of the population that has been so conditioned to believe in racism, so conditioned to do the opposite of MLK's, judging each other by the content of our character, not the color of our skin. They've been so conditioned to reject that and spit on that all they do is judge people by the color of their skin. That's all that matters to them. You can quite literally murder someone, and as long as you have the right color of skin when you commit that murder, and the other person, the one you murdered, has the other color of skin, you're the good guy. We're going to donate to your defense. We're going to stand out in the street and rally for you and protest for you, and say that if you get convicted and actually have to go to jail, that you're the victim. These people have been conditioned to believe this. And when I say these people, I mean red, white, yellow, black, and brown. I mean there are white people that have been conditioned to believe the same thing. They actually have been so brainwashed about slavery and about America, lied to about the American story, and made to hate America based on slavery. Obviously, a stupid position because it completely ignores every other nation in the history of mankind, completely ignores the condition of the world in 1776. Every nation on the planet had slavery in 1776. Completely ignores that America is the only nation to actually fight a civil war to get rid of slavery. So you had white people dying in order to free black people, and they ignore all of that. In fact, I just interviewed Ben Carson. I'll share the interview with you probably next week. It hasn't even aired on Wall Builders yet. I recorded it for Wall Builders, but I was with Dr. Carson yesterday. And if you've been living under a rock and you don't know that Dr. Ben Carson's black, here's this incredible black American who came up from poverty, who became, neurosurgeon, secretary in administration, ran for president. I mean, all the amazing things he's done. One of the most important things I think he'll ever do is what he's doing right now with these kids' books, because he's teaching patriotism through these kids' books. And this latest one's on specifically about faith of our founding fathers and how that created the greatest nation in the history of the world. And I hadn't even planned to go that direction, but he went that direction during our interview, talking about exactly what I just said. These people that hate America because of slavery are completely ignoring our actual history. And then what they do is they take this weird view, this warped view of history, and they indoctrinate young people, and they teach them to hate their own nation and to hate anyone that is not the same color of skin that they are. That is the definition of racism. That is racism. And so these public schools, these some of these churches, you have actual churches like the church that Barack Obama went to, the church that some of these people grow up in that say, you remember Reverend Jeremiah Wright saying, GD America, that he hates America. That's the mentality that has been taught. So I'm not shocked at all that a black kid would hate a white kid so much that he would stab him to death and kill him. I am shocked that you have people like a congressman, Jasmine Crockett, saying that the parents of the victim, Metcalf, the parents, what they suffered watching their son be murdered, losing a son to senseless, just racist murder. Oh, that's nothing compared to what black women face every day in America. Can you believe she said that? I guess I can, actually, because of the conditioning, because of the brainwashing, because of the division that these people have created. I'm trying to remember the proverb. I think it's in Proverbs 6 about how awful it is, how God hates a person that creates division in the community. He hates the liar. That it's maybe it's 9, but I think it's verse 19 in there. Anyway, how he hates the liar, and then he hates the person that's deceiving to cause division in the community. Well, I hate what God hates. I love what God loves. And so I hate the fact that these people have caused such a division that they have raised up kids that think it's okay to murder someone of a different color of skin, and then cause people to go rally for the murderer and say that's okay, that it's okay to. One person said, they're just trying to make an example of Carmelo Anthony. No, we're trying to make an example of murder. We're trying to say murder is wrong. I don't care. I could care less what color of skin the murderer has or the person that's being murdered. The action, the behavior is what matters. This is why the whole hate crimes thing doesn't work, because now you care more about the color of skin. Like, I don't even think it matters that in terms of his sentencing, that he murdered someone, whether or not it was because he hated them for, their color of skin. What matters is he murdered someone. Now, we can, as I just did, we can psychoanalyze the situation and say, why did he do it? Because he was raised to believe that person of another color of skin doesn't have human worth and life value as much as he does. And so his anger at being, pushed or brushed aside or whatever after being asked 17 times to leave, his anger at that was enough to justify murder in his own mind, and then for all these pontificators on television and everywhere else to justify his murder and now say that he's the one being oppressed. Folks, that is insanity. That is the opposite of what MLK saw as when he said he had a dream. The dream was not that black people would turn around and have the power and be able to murder and subjugate white people or go back 400 years and put white people into slavery or somehow be able to treat them differently because of their color of the skin. The whole articulation of the dream was that we would judge each other by the content of our character. What does that mean? That means if you murder someone, your character has been shown to be of low content, and you should be sentenced for that. That your treatment is based on your character, the behavior that comes out of your character. That's how we judge each other. And you say, oh, we're not supposed to judge. Yes, we are. The Bible's very clear that you're supposed to be able to discern right from wrong and treat evil as evil and good as good. When you don't judge, you end up treating evil as good and good as evil, which is what these people are trying to do. What Carmelo Anthony did was evil. He murdered a classmate, but they're trying to call it good. The judge or the jury in this case did good. They actually did justice. They actually found him guilty and sentenced him. That's good. These people are actually calling it evil because they have no concept of equal justice under the law that Martin Luther King Jr. was calling for. They have no concept of treating each other based on the content of our character, not the color of our skin. They are myopic in color of skin. It's all about whether you're black, brown, white, bronze, red, whatever. I mean, what do you do if you're mixed race? How do you get treated under a scenario like that? What if you're? I mean, I have black friends that are very light colored. They're very light color of black. I have white friends that tan really, really well, so they're kind of bronze. I have Indian friend who is our dean of our Patriot Institute that I'm thrilled to have him here running that for us, and he's very bronze or brown or what. Why do we even try to judge each other based on a color of skin? It's absurd. It's absurd. And it's anti-biblical. And it's anti-Christian. Because we're told, neither Jew nor Greek, that we're supposed to have literally blind justice, that we're literally supposed to see each other as MLK articulated and judge each other. Yes, we're supposed to judge based on the content of the character, the behavior that comes out of that character, not based on the color of skin. So I think this trial and this sentencing is essentially highlighting, I mean, it's putting a microscope on this racism that has been bred not just in the black community, in the left-wing community. It has been literally raised up from childhood to believe that whites are evil and blacks cannot overcome racism. And it is so wrong. Somebody please go read a Thomas Sowell book. Second best economist in our history. Milton Friedman's my favorite. My son Trey keeps trying to convince me otherwise. He says Thomas Sowell's the best economist in our history. I think he's second best, but probably the best commentator on this topic for sure. And as a black man who was a communist early on, who saw the error of those ways, his voice and his books just unbelievable. Please go read a Thomas Sowell book. All right, we got to take a break. I'm sorry I didn't take any calls. 888-589-8840. 888-589-8840. Should we get rid of racism? Should we stop judging each other based on color of our skin, especially when it comes to voting in our redistricting battles all throughout the country right now? We're hopefully going to remove racism. Supreme Court says we should and says that they have to, but we'll see how that goes. All right, quick break. We'll be right back. You're listening to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
At Wesley Biblical Seminary, we believe God is raising up a movement across our nation and around the world who hold fast to the inerrancy of Scripture and the hope of holiness. We do this through bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees, certificate programs, and even training for lay people. So whatever your next step is in being equipped for ministry, we're here for you. And if you believe these are the kind of pastors we need leading churches in the future, we invite you to think about giving to Wesley Biblical Seminary. Learn more about us at wbs.edu.
The following is a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
When I was feeling the stress of too much credit card debt, I looked at two different options: debt settlement and debt management. They may sound the same, but guess what? They're not. Debt settlement seemed like a quick fix, but I found out it would destroy my credit, create tax headaches, and hit me with huge fees. They actually told me to stop paying my bills. No way, not me. Then I turned to a debt management plan developed by the team at Trinity. They worked with my creditors, lowered my payments, reduced my interest, saved me thousands, and paid off my debt. And Trinity is a Christian company, which is important to me.
If credit card debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
My name is Heather. Please forget debt settlement and remember Trinity Debt Management.
1-800-788-1813.
Okay, here's an assignment for you, if you will. I want you to take some time and think about a getaway that gives you a chance to get together with other people of faith, deepen your walk with God, and make new friends, all while enjoying the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter in Kentucky. I'm talking about joining AFA at the Ark, October 29th and 30th. This is a great opportunity to break away from the grind of everyday life and draw closer to God through special presentations from Patricia Engler and Brian Osborne of Answers in Genesis. It also includes entrance to the Creation Museum on Thursday and the Ark Encounter on Friday. Friday's dinner includes a panel discussion with Tony Vitagliano, Walker Wildmon, and Wesley Wildmon, Vice Presidents of American Family Association. This is an event that can fill up quickly, so hurry to afa.net/events to register for AFA at the Ark 2026. afa.net/events, and we'll see you at the Ark.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Rick Green.
Welcome back to At the Core with Walker Wildman and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution coach. Okay, I'm just going to say one more thing about the whole Carmelo Anthony thing, because producer Bobby was telling me on the break, and I can't believe some of these tweets that people are actually willing to say things like this, but apparently Jasmine Crockett also said that it wasn't a deadly weapon. So a knife is not a deadly weapon now. So I need to get on the phone real quick with the mayor of London, because they've been trying to have knife control, since they've had so much ridiculous gun control for so many years. They don't kill people with guns now. They kill them with knives and trucks and anything else they can run over them with, because, it's not the weapon. As we know, it's the heart of man. We'll be back to Cain and Abel and using rocks or jawbones or whatever. Anyway, a knife is now not a deadly weapon if a black man uses it against a white man, apparently. That's the deal. These people, man, I'm telling you. The white and black race baiters are the people that God was talking about in Proverbs, to not divide the community. Come on. And yeah, we got him on the white side too, man. This Nick Fuentes kid, he's a Nazi. I call him a twerp. I mean, he's literally that kid that's in the back of the room in class. You remember that kid in high school or middle school that, just whatever they can do to draw attention to themselves. They say the most outrageous things just so people will, give them attention. I don't know what happened to him as a kid. I don't know if it was the whole conflict with other, quote unquote commentators. I don't even want to say other conservatives, because he's never been truly conservative. He's a fraud. But people think he's coming from the right, and he's a racist. He's an absolute racist. He's an anti-Semite. He's anti-black. He's anti-anything except white. And so, yeah, he's horrible. And I think people should not listen to him. I think he should be shunned and ostracized. I don't think the government should silence him. I'm not for that. but I am for people saying, don't listen to him. We should absolutely say, don't listen to him. And in the same way, if you have a black commentator that is sowing racism in the black community should stand up and ostracize them and say no to them. I think we're really blessed in the last few years to have some fantastic leaders in the black community that have stood up and done that and said no to this nonsense. People like Colonel Allen West and Brandon Tatum and Bishop Jackson, and I mean all these people that have done such a tremendous job of saying no to this stuff. I got not a new friend. I've had him on radio a few years ago, but and I think I aired his interview here on I shared it on K. Carl Smith, his book on Frederick Douglass versus Karl Marx. That's the kind of stuff that needs to be taught, because what he does is he shows how Karl Marx, you got a white man, Karl Marx, and his Marxism. And just evil theology is not the right word. What am I looking for? Philosophy. His evil philosophy has caused people to be racist and caused people to be for tyranny and caused people to divide based on these things. And then you got Frederick Douglass, a black man who came out of slavery, who had lived one of the most extraordinary lives, who I think he ended up, I think we said it in the interview, 5 different presidents that he counseled and was a part of their administration in some way, shape, or form. His story is unbelievable. It's absolutely incredible. I'm actually looking across my studio right now. I was able to get a handwriting of Frederick Douglass. So I'm starting my collection. David Barton's got this amazing collection of over 100,000 original documents. He's got every signer of the Declaration and Constitution. He's got just an incredible collection. I'm starting mine. I'm just barely starting. And my first 2 pieces in my collection, Oliver Wolcott, signer of the Declaration. I've got a handwritten document from him, and Frederick Douglass. It's a handwritten deal where, and he said this a lot, but it's a handwritten where he said, "We are as different as the waves. We're the same as the sea and as different as the waves." I love that. But anyway, so I'm a Frederick Douglass fan, big time. Always have been. David Barton introduced me to Frederick Douglass and a lot of the things that he said and wrote and did. But K. Carl Smith took the Douglass sayings and writings and compared them and basically created a debate between Karl Marx and Frederick Douglass. They were contemporaries in terms of they lived at the same time, but they never actually debated. And so anyway, go back and listen to that interview with K. Carl. But it is so timely for this Carmelo Anthony conviction and the responses and the way people acted during the trial. And I don't think this is something that we can shy away from. A lot of things I've said in the last 20 minutes, some people will be offended by. They will take offense to it. You're not offended by something unless you choose to take offense. No one can offend you. All they can do is say something that you choose to be offended by. And when you do, so what? Nothing happens when people are offended. There's too many people in the church right now that have become so sugary and sweet and dull that they are no longer salt and light. We're supposed to be salt and light, not sugary and dull. And the reason they've become sugary and dull is out of fear of giving offense. Well, friends, the gospel is offensive. The truth is offensive. It is going to cause a chemical reaction when the salt goes into the meat to preserve it and bring out the best flavor. So it burns a little. All right, so when you get that burning, because people are actually being salt, they're actually standing up and saying, this is right, this is wrong, this is truth, and I'm going to stand for it. When they are actually doing that and being salt and light, well, the darkness does not like to be dispelled. All right, the meat has a chemical reaction when the salt goes in and creates that preservation. In the same way, the culture, when we are salt, when we're salty, it's gonna cause some people to choose to be offended. So I say that, I set that up to say some people will not like what I said in the last 20 minutes. They will not like the fact that I'm saying that racism in both the black and the white community is being stirred up by these people that want to do the opposite of MLK. They want you to judge people by the color of their skin. They want you to put people in a bucket, and if they're in the right bucket from their perspective, they got the right color of skin, so if they're black and the other person's black, then you can do no wrong. You can murder a white kid, and they will stand in your defense and say that you're being made an example of if you're convicted of 35 years. There are people in the white community like this Fuentes twerp, that are doing the same thing. They are dividing based on race. Our message as Christians has to be race should not matter. Our message has to be neither Jew nor Greek. So at the time Paul was writing that, he's essentially saying don't be racist. Don't treat people different, whether they're Greek or Jewish. In our world today, in our particular culture, we would say red, white, yellow, black, or brown. We're going to treat everybody the same no matter their color of skin, no matter their background, no matter the neighborhood they came from, no matter their socioeconomic status, whether they're rich or poor. We're going to look at people and say, you're a child of God. You are a created being, and you have intrinsic worth by being a human being because God created you different from the other animals. Now, he created you to have the same worth as someone else that's a human being, regardless of whether or not their skin color is the same, came from the same part of the world or country, whether they are as smart as you or not, whether they have a learning disability or not. I mean, this applies to this whole debate going on social media right now. I don't even know who this guy was, but apparently some YouTuber aborted his kid because it was potentially going to have Down syndrome. Same issue here. That child that he murdered had just as much worth, whether Down syndrome, whether an Elon Musk, genius, whether autistic, whether whatever, they have the same intrinsic value as a human being. And as Christians, if we make that argument, then we have to say that means race doesn't matter. It should not matter. We shouldn't look at each other and care what color of skin you have. So these people right now that are sowing discord, violating that proverb, and being something that God hates. I mean, that's not me saying that. That's Proverbs. The Bible says that. It's one of the 6 things in that verse or in that chapter that God says he hates. The people that sow discord in the community. So I pray that will be stamped out, that we will shame it, that we will shun it. This is why I bring it up. I mean, some people would say, oh, you shouldn't even highlight what Jasmine Crockett said. You shouldn't even, you're causing division or racism by even pointing out that she said that these white parents of a murdered child, that what they're suffering is nothing compared to what a black woman faces every single day. I mean, we should highlight what she said, and we should shun her for saying that is a lie. Austin Metcalf's parents suffered the loss of a son. Not just the loss of a son, the murder. He was taken from them. This wasn't a car accident. This wasn't a tragedy that was out of control, unable to be controlled. Not at all. This was a choice by a human being to murder another human being. And therefore, the taking of their son caused immense pain in their family. I can't even imagine. I've never had a tragedy like that in my family. I pray I never do. Immense pain in their life, and from now on they will feel that's a hole that doesn't get filled. And yet Jasmine Crockett says if you just happen to have the right color skin and you're a female, you have the right anatomy. If you're a black woman, you face every day worse pain and heartache than these parents who had a son murdered. That has to be shunned. We have to say no, that's not only is it not right, it's not even acceptable in polite society to say something so ridiculous, because she's sowing racism into the people within her sphere and the reaction from people that happen to be brown or white or Asian or whatever. If they're not black, they're now judged differently based on the color of their skin. We need to say no to this. And so, as I said before the break, the redistricting battles are based on this exact same thing. The fact that we've allowed people to draw lines in states to try and make sure that someone gets to Congress purely based on the color of their skin. So now judged by the color of their skin, not the content of their character, which leads to their behavior, their political positions, all those things. Those are the things MLK said we should be judging people on. But no, we're going to draw districts and guarantee that somebody goes to Congress just because they're black, just because they're white, just because they're brown, just because they're whatever. That is hopefully coming to an end. So all of this crazy stuff you're seeing in these news clips and social media clips from the Anthony trial, yes, it highlights how bad the racism is in some pockets of our country, but I want to end today talking about the positive, talking about the fact that we might be turning the corner on that by shunning it and saying no more, we don't want that, and pointing out that the SPLC had to there was so little racism or violence, or practically none, from the right that they had to make it up. They had to go use SPLC money to hire people to act like they were racist or, right wing, or what they call right wing. I don't think that's right wing. I think that's just pure racism. It's actually, we have so little racism in the country that they had to pay people to do it. So these people that you're seeing in the social media stuff from the Anthony trial, I hope is a microcosm. I mean, I would argue the evidence is there's definitely more racism in the black community right now than in the white community, but it is starting to crop back up in the white community, and we should say no to that. But nationally, it's getting smaller, and the law reflects that. Now, there's an order to this. The law is a great teacher, my friend Frank Turek would say. And so even if the opinions in the country don't yet reflect something that is truth that needs to be the law, like don't murder or don't judge based on the color of skin. So now we have a law. I say that lightly because it's a Supreme Court decision, which should not normally be the law. But the civil rights laws do say that you should not draw districts based on racism. And we've been doing that for 60 years in this country. And the Supreme Court has just said a few weeks ago, no, don't do that anymore. Don't judge by the color of skin. Judge by the content of character. So now you got a Supreme Court decision that is, I guess you could say law, because it is applying the actual Civil Rights Act, which says don't draw districts based on color of skin. So, hey, I think we could have, a turning point in our country to say that, what, we're going to have blind districts. We're going to have colorblind districts. We're going to have districts that don't judge you based on your color of skin. Maybe we should do that. Here's an idea. My youngest son recommended this the other day. Maybe we should do that with regard to partisanship as well. All these fights over the redistricting, absolutely legal, absolutely constitutional for a state to redistrict this year and to draw lines based on partisanship, not based on race, but based on party. The only one that did it unconstitutionally was Virginia, because they violated their state constitution in how they did it. They could have done it the right constitutional way if they had started early enough. So anyway, that's constitutional. That's legal to do that. But you know what? I think maybe we'll flesh this out in a future program. I think maybe my son's onto something. He said, Dad, why don't we, if we can say you can't take race into consideration when you're drawing the lines, why can't we say you can't take party into consideration? What if we actually said in redistricting, now, some of my Republican friends in the legislatures are going to get really mad that I'm saying this, but what if we actually said in redistricting, you just have to do it based on population. You cannot look at any other data when you're drawing the congressional lines. And so now you actually do your best to keep counties together, make them square districts or whatever, instead of doing gerrymandering, instead of actually purposely drawing a Republican or a Democrat district. What if you threw the population into the computer and you drew it without being able to look at partisanship, just as you cannot look at race? Wow. That just might work. That might remove a lot of this hatred and bigotry and all of the things that have been happening to divide us. And then Congress just reflects whatever those districts turned out to be, with no partisanship considered, just, as compact as you can on the districts. Anyway, I'm getting too far into the weeds as we're closing out. But these are the kind of things we should start thinking about in order to bring our country back together, in order to reduce the division. Again, judging each other based on the content of our character, our behavior, the things that we actually do. You murder somebody, you get convicted. You go to prison. We throw away the key, or in his case, for 35 years. I think it's a good thing that justice happened. All right, out of time for today. Walker's got you tomorrow. I'll see you next Tuesday. You're listening to At the Core, or have been listening to At the Core with Walker Wildmon and Rick Green.